So welcome to our episode about sequencers and arpeggiators. So I've just picked a patch for us already. It sounds like this. Beautiful dark neon plugged patch. And so you can just go here on sequencer button in Pigments and just initialize it here. And then you will start on the sequencer page here, which you see the only difference between these two is the notes here. We will be talking about this later. So start with the arpeggiator. And what it does is if I hold down a note now, it plays this note for us. And I just use my mod wheel to close the filter. It is not coming from the arpeggiator. I'm just holding down this low A here. Nothing else, and it plays the sequence for me. And if I play now two new notes, it will play them for me. So you just notice you need to be really good with the timing. If you mess the timing up, you will mess the sequence up, but this is how you can play around with an arpeggiator. So it does cycle through the notes that you hold down. So if I only hold down two notes, my sequence will be shorter than if I hold down 5 notes. So, and then as you see, we have plenty of things here. So let's start one by one. So first of all, this here is our, we could say, the step sequencer. So each bar, a bar is the whole thing here from 1 to 16, is containing 16 steps, or if you want to say 16 notes. So all of these are notes. If I hold down a note, it's playing all these notes for us. And we have plenty of options here of parameters. So let's look into what they do. So let's start with the octave button. If you remember, let me turn this off for a second. An octave is the same note one range higher or lower, you could say. So this is an A, this is an A 1 octave higher, and this is 1 A even 1 octave higher, or a low A here. It's all the same note, always transposed by 1 octave, and this means that it will never mess with your musical scale, so you will never get out of key. So this is a C, and a C, and another C, and another C. They all sound the same, just different pitches, but it's the same note. So if we play around with this octave thing here, we could say the first note should always be 1 octave lower than what we play. The second one should be 1 octave higher, and then the next one should 2 lower, and the next one should be 2 higher. And it would do this for us. If I hold down now a note, each time we come across these 4 steps, it will do this for us. If I hold down 2 notes now, it will do the same for the note that is actually being played at this time. Then we have the trigger probability, which means the probability that the note is being played at all. So at 100% all the notes are being played, but if you bring this down to this amount maybe, for instance, then it means that the chance that this note is being played is only 66%. So it could be that you won't hear this note at all. So this can kill some random notes in between and can make everything a little bit less predictable. So if I just hold down 1 note now, we will only always get different values. So each time it passes one of these, it rolls the dices and determines if that note is being played or not. Then we have the gate length. This is determine how long a note will be audible, you could say. It's a little bit like the sustain. So if I make this, you hear a little bit of a difference, but not strong. So let me bring the release down so you can actually hear this better. My god, why do we have 3 envelopes? Okay, so let's bring this down, and this down, and this down. So now, can really hear this. Let's bring all of these down. So you hear the difference now, because the lowest value is of course still on default position here. So if you bring all of these up, the lowest position is just not short. So on short settings, of course, you can hear this better. But then on the other hand, if we make this short again, and then bring some up of those, that's something you will notice. And if I release the key after one of these, you will hear it way longer, opposed to that. If I release it here, instantly getting killed. So this way we can add some can create some rhythm with it, you could say. This is what this option is good for. Let me bring this back for a second. I don't know the original values. So I think this was around this value. Then this a little bit shorter, this as well. Something like this. So yeah, and the next thing we have here is the slide. So the slide does what the glide does. Remember the glide, if I turn this off, glide did something like this. And basically what you're setting up here is glide as well. So if I make something like this, it will glide between these notes. Only of course if you play different notes. So if I play only one note now, it will glide back to that note because the synth remembers your last note, but then it will stay the same. Because I'm just holding down the A, it's playing all the time A, and from A to A you can't glide because it's the same note. But if I play two notes, or even more, so this already sounds extreme on this value, so you should maybe, I mean, not you should, you do whatever sounds good to you. Maybe you want to have a crazy patch, but you could bring this a little bit down. If you hold down Control on your keyboard, and this is true for all the other buttons, you get these little fine-tune values, so you can work with them. So here we have -10. Let's make this -10. Not -10, but bring it to 10, you know what I mean. So we get only a little bit of this glide, and then let's shorten this, so we can grab it here and make it shorter, just so we hear only this part. Let me actually play something better. So you see the slide is adding a lot, especially if I make this mod wheel movements to dive into our dark filter. So pretty cool. So these are the options here. So we have still the velocity open that we didn't talk about yet. So let me reset this. Okay, so with the velocity, you remember the velocity is how hard I push the key. And basically this arpeggiator here can program the velocity for these notes. So instead, like if I play A, all these A's here could have different velocities, so you could push this one really hard and this one really soft, do something like this, because it simulates how you would play, right? This is what we do here. And it of course does nothing now because velocity is not linked to anything, so we need to bring it to something. So let's link it to this modulation here. It's an extreme example, but let's do it, so you can really hear it better. And you need to spend attention to this here. So by 25%, it means that if I push the key really hard now, so let's say we bring all of these. Let's just bring the first 4 down, so I don't need to reprogram everything. So this says velocity is basically at 0, like 1 is like 0. It's the minimum value. So usually, if I hit a key now, we should not have any modulation at all, right? Because default position is at 0. But if I play strong now, we start here, and that is because 25% of what we play will be taken first as a default position, and then this applies. So if you want this only to apply, you will bring this to 0, and if I play really hard now, we still start at 0. So if you really completely program your patch with this, you need to bring this down to 0, otherwise you could mess something up with playing. Or you say, hey, I want to have a little bit of control, I bring this to 50% or 25%, so you have a little bit of control and the rest is done by what you program in here. This is of course an opportunity as well, but this is how it sounds at 0. So these notes now have this velocity, and I missed one step. We could bring this to something else, so let's take this here just to a little amount and then open the filter a little bit, more resonance, and maybe mess with the pulse width. Yeah, sounds absolutely terrible, but you get the idea. Yeah, it's completely messing with our with our notes. So let's get rid of all of this, but you get the idea. This is how you program the velocity in, and then you could just link it to something if you really want to have a cool effect, like bring it a little bit on the cut up, for example, and then of course don't make it so super strong. Then even still too strong. So you could either bring it down here or of course reduce the value here from a velocity that we link to the cutoff, but like here, can go into negative positions. Now it's going to close the filter each time the velocity is higher than 1. And if you bring it down by the mod wheel now, the filter, you will have a cooler effect. Because the filter is now pretty closed and these velocity steps are opening it a little bit for us on each second note. But enough playing for now. Let's cover all the other elements, because there are still quite a few. So let's finish with this window here. So we have the ARP mode, so it's up now. So if I play a chord, let's say I play a C major chord, which is C, E, and G, it plays this for me down here. So now it's going up, because the mode is set to up. If you set it to down and I play the same chord, it will play from the last note down to the first one. Then we have as played. This means it will do whatever I do. So if I play the C first, and then let's say the B, and then the E, and then the G, it will do it in this fashion, in this order. So first the C, the B, the E, and the G. So you can see that it follows the rhythm that I play, well, the order. Then we have up and down including, which means if I play a C major chord, you see it plays the outer notes twice. Let me actually play A minor. I just think that sounds better. So you see, if I play this sequence, it plays, well, it plays this, and then it starts again from the top. This is why it plays the outer notes twice, because it plays now the same sequence back, and now it starts here again. This is why we have these double outer notes. So if you don't like this, you can set this to excluding here, and it will do it, play it smooth without this. And of course you have random, which will just pick random notes from whatever you play. So if I hold down something with 4 notes, like this here, will pick everything completely random. So can happen that sometimes a note is being played 3 times in a row and another one not at all for 10 steps. So, well, the fun that you get with random. So talking about random, we have this randomize option here, and we have the dices here. So the dices, they actually, if you roll the dice, it will create new values for us. So let's click at the octave, for instance, and increase this, and you see there's a gray area appearing behind, and we get these new dark horizontal lines, which means that instead of the one that we picked here, the highlighted one, it will play the dark one, because we have added this randomizer here, and this randomizer gives us, well, random values in the range that we set. So if I play this now, we will have all these random octaves being played that are now in here. And they stay always the same unless you go here and you can say how often they should change. So you remember 1 bar is the whole thing here. So if I bring this to 1 bar, if I play a note now, so after 1 cycle is completed, we get new values. And if this is too slow for you, you could, or too quick, you can change it. So 2 bars means it needs to pass 2 cycles until this happens. However, if I bring it to a quarter bar, it will change every 4 steps, because this is a quarter. So basically, you could say that this is the speed that you set up for dicing out new values for the randomizers that you've applied. So if I bring here some randomizers and here some randomizers and a little bit on the slide, but just tiny values, because it's so extreme, then So you see, this is now with a few randomizers. Let's get a little bit creative with this maybe. Let's see what we can do. Just a little performance to show you. Did I just play a few chords and a few notes, and the arpeggiator is adding a lot of this through all of these randomizers, right? I could even go more crazy with this stuff like I showed you before, so that it follows my sequence as played or stuff like this. By the way, so we have the regeneration button here. If we click this, you see that we just get new values. So because if you bring this to 0, it will never refresh, as you remember. It will stay the same. And if you don't like these values, but you don't want to always get new values because you want some kind of consistent rhythm or sequence, then you can just roll the dice as new until you find something that you're happy with. And you can even then click on apply. And if I click now apply, you will see that our highlighted bars will move to the position of the new values and will become the new default position. So if I click here, this is now our sequence. Then we have this rate button, which is simply the speed, so we can speed this up. So this is a little bit too fast, but of course you could make it really slow. Then we have the swing button. So if I hold this down, it adds well, let me actually reset this so you can better hear what it does. Let's get rid of these randomizers, because here's so much stuff going on right now that it's hard to hear. So without, that's a sequence. And if I introduce swing, well, then it gets this swing rhythm, so you could say it's a bit funky. Yeah, that's what it does. It's just to mess a little bit with your rhythm. And the last thing that we have here is this polyrhythm thing. So if I click here, what happens is that I can now change the length of this individually. So I could say, whoops, oh, come on. I could say that these are shorter than the rest. So I could make them actually have half the length, and then so let's say something like this. So you see it in in motion. What did I do here? Okay, let's just do it like this. So basically you could say that you could say like you have a sequence that is 16 step long and you always want the octaves to jump like this, but you want something here to have a longer sequence. So maybe you want to have something like this here, but then at this part you want to go with values like this while the octaves still jump here. So you don't need to program this all the way, you can just make it like this and then you will have the same effect. So is this still linked? No. Let's see. Just so you get the idea. Whoops. This sounds terrible, I think it's because of this. Yeah. So this is simply something to set up your rhythm. So I think it's just making things easier. And as well, there is something that's called realign. So if this is off, it will just, you know, like if I do something like this here, you may notice that things are getting out of sync from each other, even if there's no settings now, but you will see it visually. So now they have all different positions. And you could actually want that, because maybe it adds some randomness that you like, that you invite to your piece of music. But just if you don't like, you could say after half a bar, or actually after one bar, so after one cycle, all of these should realign. So they are now out of sync, but at the end, they all start again here together. So this is what this is for, and if you bring this to half a bar, they will actually reset from here on, which means it won't play further. So half a bar in this case would only make sense if you had something like this, something that is even shorter, so it will realign after that. So this is what this does. And let's reset all of this, and we have one last setting that we didn't talk about here, and this is the division, pitch rate divider, yeah. So let's say we increase the octave here by 2 and this one by -2. So usually if I play now, let me turn this off. It will only happen when these notes are being played once. But this octave rate divider thing tells the sequencer how many steps he should stick to this value. So if I bring this to 4, it will mean that it picks this value here, and the next 4 notes that you hear will have this setting. And then it goes to the next value, which is -2 octaves, and the next 4 notes will have this setting as well. So if I play now, you notice, like, instead of this, it did it for longer. I can even make it double so long, 8 times. So this is another way, if you play with this and different settings, to make your rhythms maybe more interesting, or give them some variations in the length and how they behave, so you can really mess with the settings and get really wild with this. And that's basically everything that you need to know about this, because that's all the settings. And we have the sequencer here on the last button, and I told you in the beginning that you see that what changes here is, instead of this arpeggiator, we get this pitch thing, and it says C everywhere here. But no matter what note I play, I get that note that I play. So if I play an A, I hear an A. If I play a B, I hear a B. And if I play a C, I hear a C. So this is actually not showing the true notes, but it shows, and let me make this shorter for ease of presentation, it shows the distance between the notes. So If I make this C E B, which is a huge major C major chord. So this is, let me turn this off. So if I play a C E G B chord, it sounds like this. That's the chord. And if I have this programmed in here and I hold down only C now as starting note, it will play that for me. And that's cool, but if I play now the B below, I'm out of key. I'm not in C major anymore, so it messes with my scale. So I can't play with this everywhere I want because I will always be in another scale. So when could you do this? You could actually do this if you say, I just want to play this patch this way. I just want to have some fun with programming ambient music, and that's cool, and I just want to play through all these different C major chords, or not C major, through all these major chords. And actually, did you hear this clickiness? I think there sometimes. Sometimes there's this clicking. Let me check something. Still there. I don't know where it's coming from currently, but it's not from my patch. Sometimes if you get clickiness, you can check your attack times. If the attack is set to 0 or 0.1, that's really can cause clickiness. I don't know why it does this now. Maybe it has something to do with, yeah, with the, here's no clickiness. Yeah, it seems to come from the sequencer. I don't know why it's doing, but it doesn't matter anyway. Just so what I wanted to say is that it is hard to play with this in a real musical composition because you will run out of scale pretty quick. But if you just want to play with a patch and just have some ambient or, I don't know, musical performance fun on an evening, you can just program a chord in here and then play your sequence. Of course, you could even make longer chords, and you could next make a minor chord and whatever if you're good at music theory, and then just cycle through and play. And here you have even more options to deal with how Pigments works with the things that you do. But in the end, it's a really specific tool in my opinion. This is why I usually only work with the Arpeggiator. I must admit that it could be, I don't know, it could be that there's some way to program this that you would only get notes in your scale. So I don't know if I click on major, but I can't even pick a scale, so I can say that everything I want to play is in C major. So I actually don't know how this works. But it doesn't matter, of course, because we are here for sound design, and for sound design, music theory is now really not important. And I don't want to bore you with this, especially because everyone has a different skill level in music theory. But just so you know about the option, and that maybe if you're good with music theory and you want to make use of this, just take a look at the manual from Pigments. Maybe you will find something that makes it more playable. But yeah, the Arpeggiator is generally more versatile in your productions, I find. And yeah, that's how these two work. And I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you find some inspiration in these tools. And we will see us then in the next lesson.